We're speaking again about Kvod Shabbat and Oneg Shabbat, and we like to start with an introduction. And that introduction is very, very important, that whatever we do on Shabbat, we don't really do for ourselves. We do to honor the Shabbat, which is the ultimate to honor our Kadosh Baruch Hu, and to respect the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and to respect the day that we said that one needs to respect. And it's not for us. As the Mefarshim bring down, this is very important. The Levush brings like this. He says what it means, le'aneg et ha-Shabbat. You pleasuring the Shabbat. The Lashon is precise. Don't think it's just words. Le'aneg ha-Shabbat l'shem shamayim velo le'anato. You're doing it l'shem shamayim, in order that the Shabbat should be respected. He's not the only one that says that. There's a list of poskim, and I want to get that point across. The Chidah says, ve'karata la-Shabbat Oneg. You should call the Shabbat Oneg, pleasure, time of enjoyment. Shabbat titaneg velo adam. You hear the Chidah? The Chidah says the Shabbat has to be enjoyed, and not the person himself. And we'll explain what it means. It's like a deep concept that we need to understand. So the Shla explains the following. He says that Amru Rabotenu kol hame'aneg et ha-Shabbat. A person that gives pleasure, gives enjoyment to the Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat is to Shabbat, not to ourselves, to Shabbat. Lo amru kol hame'aneg or hamitaneg b'Shabbat. It doesn't say, Chachamim didn't say one that has enjoyment on Shabbat. Rather, you have to give the Shabbat the enjoyment. What does that mean? Ki adam lo yeh kavanato al atzmo le'aneg. You should not have intention. It's all in the intention, in the mind. Although you're eating the same steak, although you're eating the same ice cream, although you're drinking the same good drinks, but the main point of here is the intention. Kavanato lo yeh al atzmo le'aneg, rak yaseh ha'oneg bishvil kvod ha'Shabbat. You have to do it in order to honor the Shabbat. Vezeu vekarata la'Shabbat oneg. Shetikra le'ha'Shabbat oneg. The Shabbat should have oneg. So he explains a mashal, a parable. כעניין מי שמזמין אורח חשוב וגדול שעושה סעודה לכבודו. A person that invites somebody very, very important to his house. You bring a big rabbi to your house, and he comes as a guest. Now, anything you'll do at that סעודה, you're not doing for yourself, you're doing for him. ובלא האורח היה קשה עליו ההוצאה והתענוג, which means you wouldn't do it for yourself at all. You wouldn't spend that kind of money for your meal. Right? It's a weekday meal, let's say. It comes for you on the Tuesday. You have now one of the biggest Rabbanim coming to be invited by your house. So on a Tuesday, you wouldn't do anything special. But now that you have that Chacham coming to your house, you'll spend extra money that you normally would. You'll set up the table, set up the house, you clean the house, you do everything that you do, and anything you eat just... it's not like you have appetite, you have over here good food. That's the reason you're eating what you're eating. No, you're eating it in order to honor the important guest that you have coming to your house. It's interesting, I saw in Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein, he brings a mashal that they say that Hai Alma Kebe Hilul Adamya, which means this world, the Chazal say, is like a wedding. This world is like a wedding. So there's different interpretations what it means, but he explains it very nicely. It's like this. When a person makes a wedding, so let's say you're marrying your child. So who would be the ones that benefiting and enjoying the food more than others? You'll see that the further you are to the family, the more you'll enjoy the meal. So you have people sitting at the meal, sitting on the tables and eating, and they're enjoying every bite, and they're drinking, and they're enjoying it very much. Why? Because they have nothing to do with it. They're pretty far from the family. But the closer you are to the family, let's say the father of the Chatan or the Kala, the mother of the Chatan and the Kala, could be the eating also, but that they're eating only so everybody would see that they're eating also because they don't want to be hungry, but they're not enjoying the meal, they're not thinking about the meal, because they're thinking about making sure that everything runs smoothly, making sure that the Chatan and the Kala are happy. So that's what it means. In this world, Hai Alma, Kevei Lul Adame. In this world, it's the same thing. When you're honoring the Shabbat, the more your intention is on the Shabbat, he says, the more you have that kavanah that you're just doing it l'shem shamayim, the less you'll feel the enjoyment. But don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's a mitzvah to enjoy the meal on Shabbat, but it's in order to honor the Shabbat. And he says like this. על כן, אותם הממלאים, this is a שלה הקדוש, אותם הממלאים בתנם כסוס וכפרד אין אבין, which means people think that on Shabbat, you can let go of any, normally during the week, you shouldn't be eating without any, you can just keep on eating. There's no such thing during the week. So people think that maybe on Shabbat you could. There's no stop. You can eat whatever you want. So he says, the Shla, no, that's wrong. Those that eat, memalim bitnam, they fill up their stomachs, kisus kepered enavin, just like a horse, eating and eating and eating non-stop, lelech achar ha'arev veravcha lefsima shchicha, which means you're just eating sweet things and enjoying. It's like loose time that you can do whatever you want. He says that's wrong. That's something that's not true. And then they go to sleep, אחר כך מרוב מאכלים נופלת תרדמה עליהם ומכלים מוחם. אלו אין נקראים מענגים את השבת, אלא מענגים את עצמם בשבת. Those are not considered people that are giving pleasure to the Shabbat rather to themselves. That's not what Shabbat was intended for. על כן יכלכל דבריו במשפט. A person should think before he eats and before he does everything. All that we said above was permitted, but with the right intention. You're not doing it because it's a day of pleasure. You can do whatever you want. Shabbat comes, and now I'm starting to do whatever I feel like to enjoy and have benefit from it. No. A person needs to eat and drink, but the right amount just should be to pleasure the Shabbat. אין הכוונה למלות בטנו, כי לא מנוחה ועונג יקרא לזאת, אלא עיבוד המאכל והגוף. Rather, what should a person do? That's what he shouldn't do. What should he do? יאכל וישתה בשמחה וטוב לבב. One should eat, one should drink. Have a good time. מאכל טוב ויפה, מותאם, מתוקן, קל לעיכול. A person should eat good food. But, מעט הכמות ורב האיכות. It's better if you eat a little bit, not too much, but very, very enjoyable things. Like you go to a fancy restaurant, so over there they'll give you a small portion, cost a fortune. Why? Because they're not trying to stuff you, right? You go to a cheap restaurant, you go to a quick food, fast food, they'll give you a lot for not so much money. They'll give you a lot. The idea over there is to stuff you, that you feel that you're satisfied, that's all. But when you go to a very fancy restaurant, over there, they'll give you a very small portion. Everything is very expensive. Wine, you drink in 1 cup, it's very expensive. Everything is very expensive. You don't come out of this stuff. You come out feeling that you ate something delicious and good, you enjoyed yourself, and you come out feeling good. You don't feel, when you eat fast food, you feel disgusting afterwards. Yeah, you filled up your stomach, but you feel disgusting. The first couple of bites were good. Afterwards, it was just like eating, like stuffing yourself with it. So he says, Shabbat should be the same thing like going to a very expensive restaurant. לא ימלא קרסו. ישתה 2 או 3 כוסות של יין לשמח את ליבו. One is allowed to drink wine on Shabbat, even the mitzvah. But it's not one shouldn't drink to get drunk, rather לשמח את ליבו, which means when a person drinks a little bit, he feels good. But when he drinks and drinks and drinks just to get drunk, there's places that you'll see them on Shabbat, they're just finishing bottles, they're getting drunk on Shabbat. Shabbat is not Purim, you don't get drunk on Shabbat. ויקום מתוך שמחת אכילתו לקבוע לימודו, ישן מעט, one should go to sleep a little bit. Shabbat is not made that one should eat, go to bed, and wake up for mincha, as some do. And therefore, one should be careful with that. The Shla says in מסכת סוכה, אלה מועדי בזמן שעושים המצוות ומקדשים המועדות באספת העם בבתי כנסיות, היינו מקרא קודש. When is it מקרא קודש? When is it elevated? When Shabbat gets the meaning of Shabbat, when people actually go to shul, they do the right thing, ומהללים ומשבחים לשם, עוסקים בתורה, אלה מועדי. ואם לאו, if people do the same, on Shabbat and on Yom Tov, which means they eat and drink and having a good time and having laughs and also all kind of things besides having the right intention, im lav enam moadai ela moadechem. This is not my Shabbat, says Hashem. Rather, it's your moed. It's your good time. Nothing to do with me. Just like we found Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had this min. Min was somebody who had apikoros. He came to Rabbi Akiva. They used to always debate the chachamim, the big rabbis, And he came with a question to Rabbi Akiva, and he asked him the following things. Why is it that you're making holidays now? You shouldn't make holidays. Because it says in the Torah, in the Navi, san'a nafshi. Hashem says, I hate your holidays. I hate your Rosh Chodesh. I hate your holidays. So he asked him a very simple question. If Hashem hates it, what are you doing? You're trying to make Hashem more angry if he doesn't like it. What are you making a holiday? Amar le, Rabbi Akiva answered him the way we explained right now. Miktiv chodashai u'moadai san'a nafshi. Hashem doesn't say, I hate my holiday. I hate my Rosh Chodesh. No, chodshechem u'moadechem. When you do it for yourself, for your own pleasure, that's what I don't like. But otherwise, Rabbi Akiva says, if we do it l'shem shamayim, we do it in order for Hashem to be happy, or for the Shabbat, to make the Shabbat enjoyable, that is something positive. שאתם מתכוונים להנאת גופכם בלבד הם שנואים, אבל אם הם לעבודתי אינם שנואים ואינם עליי לטורח אלא אהובים וחביבים. And this is how the Gaon מווילנה said as well, to wrap this up. The Gaon מווילנה says, לענג השבת במאכל ובמשתה, one needs to give Shabbat, to have on Shabbat good food and good drinks, לחפשו בכסות נקייה, come with clean clothing, שיהיה כוונתו לשם השם. But the main idea is that one should do it לשם שמיים. לא להנאת עצמו. And therefore it says, וקראת לשבת עונג, לשבת דווקא. That's what it says, by the way. מענגע לעולם כבוד ינחהו. מענגע means מענג את השבת. You're doing it for the purpose of Shabbat, not for yourself. So, lemaise, when we're talking in a reality world, you're sitting on the table and you're eating the same steak. What is it that you need to do to know that if you're doing it for a mitzvah, or you're doing it for yourself, which is not considered a mitzvah, it's considered something negative? When is it that will be considered something positive? When is it that it would be considered something negative? It's really all in the intention. It shouldn't be that hard. It's in the intention, which means, there's a mashal, the Magid Miduvna says, beautiful mashal. The Magid Miduvna brings like this. There was a father, extremely wealthy father, and he lived in a different town, and he made a wedding for his son. So his two children lived in a totally different place. He told them, he sent the letter to his son that he should go and buy the best clothing, spend a lot of money that's needed in order that he should come respectful, him and the kids and everybody, in order to honor him, and whatever he pays for, he'll give him back, he'll refund him. He should bring him receipts on everything that he spent, and he'll pay him for everything. So this son got this message. It was beautiful. But the father said also in that letter, make sure you call your brother as well. Make sure you bring your brother as well to the wedding that I'm making in that town. That child, when he got the letter, he saw that now everything is paid for. He said, great, I'm going to go now and spend whatever's needed. He went, he bought himself the best suits in the store. He took his children, he bought for them the best suits, the best hats, the best shoes, everything was on the best in the market. And then before taking the train to the wedding, he remembered that the father also said, bring your brother also. Now his brother was a poor man, and his clothing were ripped and everything. So when he approached him, he told him, we're going to the wedding. He told him, how should I go with such clothing? Everything is ripped, I don't look good. So he told him, don't worry, your father loves you anyway, what's the difference? Just come, you'll be received with honor anyway. You're a child, you're his child, your son. So they went together. When they come down from the train, this wealthy father, he saw the children coming, he brought a musician to start playing over there, and as the brother came down, he was playing for him. It was a very enjoyable time. He honored him in such a way. He was very, very nice. And then people asked him, who is this child? They told him, oh, that's my boy, that's my boy. That's my oldest child. As they came down, his children, they asked him who these people around, they asked him who's this, and the music is playing. They told him, oh, that's my grandchildren, how beautiful. One goes after the other, one goes after the other. And then finally, this other brother came down with the ripped clothing, and people asked, who is this? Oh, I said, also, that's my also child. But now, the feeling was not anymore to honor the father. The father didn't feel anymore as good as he felt when the other children were coming down, because he saw the ripped clothing, he saw where it wasn't so respectful. but nevertheless he accepted him because that's also his boy. Throughout the whole time that he was there for the wedding and Sheva Brachot, this boy was trying to get to his father to get paid and to get refunded for all the expenses that he had. But he sees that his father constantly gets away from him. He doesn't want to pay the expenses. In the last day, he comes to him and he tells him, Father, I need to make sure that you pay me for everything that we made up. Here, I have over here the bills. I need everything to be paid. So his father told him, no, I never said I'll pay you for it. He told him, what do you mean? I have the letter right here. You said that anything that I'll spend, you pay me back. He says, no, you missed the boat. He didn't say that anything that you'll spend, I'll pay you back. I said anything that you'll spend for my honor, I'll pay you back. And since you didn't even think that your brother needs to be dressed respectfully, you didn't buy all this clothing for my honor, rather you bought it for yourself. And for that I'm not paying. Whatever you spend for yourself, I'm paying. For whatever you spend for me, whatever you spend for yourself, I'm not paying. Whatever you spend for me, that I would be paying. And this is what the Mashal, the Magid Miduvna says on Shabbat. When you have Shabbat, and you were doing it, who are you doing it for? You're doing it for the Shabbat or you're doing it for yourself? You can see the difference for who you're doing it in the way you're doing things. Would you also make sure that you'll have a guest on Shabbat? You know somebody that doesn't have a place to be on Shabbat. If you're doing Shabbat for yourself, you're not concerned about anybody else. But if you're trying to respect the Shabbat, you're trying to respect the Kadosh Baruch Hu, you make sure that all Hashem's children would have a place for Shabbat. If you're doing things for Shabbat, you wouldn't just go ahead and spend money when you know that somebody else could use that money also to be to buy something for Shabbat, because otherwise he wouldn't have, and so on and so forth. This would be an indication, very important indication, that one needs to take and apply for himself. So therefore, on Shabbat, when you do something, make sure that you're doing it for the purpose of Shabbat. That's what it says in the Pasuk, says the Magid. He says that on Shabbat it says, Me'angea Lo'olam kavod inchalu. It's in order to be me'aneg et Hashem. It says, how would you know that you're doing it for Shabbat? You're honoring the Shabbat. It says in the Pasuk, Im tashiv mishabat raglecha asot chafetzecha beyom kodeshi. What does it mean? Im tashiv mishabat raglecha. Im tashiv mishabat raglecha. If you're not going to do things that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, Asot chafatzecha beyom kodeshi. You're sitting on Shabbat table. And what are you talking about? You're talking about all other things besides anything that has to do with Shabbat. So you're talking about baseball games. You're talking about some show that you've been to, and you're talking about all kind of things. Or you're talking things that you're not allowed to talk on Shabbat. For instance, you're planning a certain construction that you're doing on the house that you're not allowed to do. You learn from these psukim. You're not allowed to do such things. You're not allowed to talk about your business on Shabbat, what you're planning to do in your business, and so on and so forth. So says the pasuk, Im tashiv mishabat raglecha. If you'll do all those things that one is obligated to stay away from, if you want to do them, asot chafetzecha beyom kodeshi, then we know that v'karata l'Shabbat oneg. Whatever you do is to honor the Shabbat and not to honor yourself. So this was an introduction of what a person needs to have in mind in order to be mekayem the mitzvah of Kvod Shabbat. By the way, Rav Eliashiv brings down that whenever you spend that money, that extra money that we learned in the past, that whatever you spend on Shabbat, kol hamosif mosifim lo. Whatever you spend on Shabbat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu refunds you, and even if you spend extra, Hashem Yitbarach refunds you everything, right? And we said that kol hotzaot, any spending that you have would be refunded if it's for Shabbat, Yamim Tovim, v'Talmud Torah. Because the Gemara in Beitzah says, in the beginning of the second parak, that everything you make, all the income that you'll have throughout the year is set miRosh Hashanah until the end, until Rosh Hashanah. The whole year is already set on Rosh Hashanah how much money you'll be earning this year, except Otzaot, Shabbatot, V'Yamim Tovim, V'Talmud Torah, which means anything that you spend on Shabbat, you get back. But we're saying that only, says Rav Eliashiv, that it's only the necessary things and not spending things that are extra, which means, what do you eat on Shabbat? You eat meat, you eat chicken, you eat, let's say, fish, you bread, wine, good drinks. All those things are under that kol hamosif mosifim lo. You want to buy something that's extra delicious, that's fine. Hashem Yitbarach will pay you extra for it. So you don't have to go to the store and try to save money buying the less good quality. Buy the better quality for Shabbat. That's fine. And Hashem will pay that back. But buying things that are extra after you already have the meal and everything, you're buying things that you don't need anymore. That's called motarot. Extra. That extra is not under that promise, says Rav Eliashiv, that kol hamosif mosifim lo. So therefore, whatever you need for dessert, let's say, that's fine. But to buy extra items for dessert where it's not needed anymore, just to have super pleasure on Shabbat, that's not considered part of that. Also, it says in Kuntres, Toldot Ephraim, that Otzaot Shabbat, it says, im mosif mosifim lo. It doesn't say im marbe, rather mosif. What's the difference between, what is the Lashon, mosif? It says that Kuntres, Toldot Ephraim, it says the word mosif that Chazal used means to add. It's a little bit. It doesn't mean that a very large amount. So therefore, if you're buying for Shabbat, let's say you intended to buy something, a certain piece of meat for Shabbat. You want to buy that piece of meat, it costs a certain price. And now you say, you know what? For Shabbat, I'll buy something, I'll buy the best. The best costs much more. Says that Sefer that you only get refunded for the extra money that you're paying, that's only if it's a little bit more expensive, not way much more expensive, because it says mosif, not marbe, mosif. Marbe would be anything that you spend. Mosif means add a little bit. So therefore he says, could be, Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein brings this down, and he says, could be, since the Lashon, he brings from that Sefer, could be Lashon, Yosif, Mosif, we found Vayosef Chamishito, which means up to a fifth. Could be whatever you're adding. You intended to buy a piece of meat, let's say, for $10, so adding a fifth to that amount, that would be permitted. He says, could be even double, up to a double. Because on Shabbat, everything on Shabbat is doubled. Whatever we do on Shabbat is doubled. So it could be you can spend double that amount and you still be refunded. But not that you can go now and spend way much more money than what was intended to spend initially. Okay? So that's an idea that's brought down over there. Now, there's a mitzvah on Shabbat to taste the food on Erev Shabbat. While you're preparing the Shabbat meals, the mitzvah to taste the food. So therefore, that mitzvah, by the way, it says, To'ameh chaim zachu. Whenever you taste something, you get life for it. What's the reason you have to taste food on Shabbat or before Shabbat? Because you're trying to prepare the meal, and you're trying to make sure that everything is perfect. So therefore, you taste the food. Not only you have to taste the food, even others, they can come and taste the food. If something's not good, they'll know before Shabbat in order to fix it. Shabbat already, you can't adjust it, you can't fix it, you can't do anything. So that's a very important thing to do. It's a mitzvah to taste the food before Shabbat. Some say it's in order also to show that you're preparing for Shabbat, you're doing for Shabbat. And therefore, there's such a mitzvah to taste. This says them again for everything that's being cooked, all the tavshilim, everything. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says it's tov, it's a good idea. Magen Avraham brings down that one has to taste. It's important that one should taste that food before Shabbat. By the way, it says in Halacha that one needs to sharpen his knife before Shabbat. It doesn't seem like it's so applicable in our generation, because the reason they sharpened the knife was mainly to make sure that when you cut on Shabbat, your knife is sharp, and when you have a knife that's not sharp, it could cause problems, especially problems of Shalom Bayit, the Halacha brings down. So therefore, you need to sharpen, make sure that it's always very, very sharp. Today, knife stays sharp, and therefore it could be that you don't have that altogether. There's a second reason for sharpening the knife, and that is that you have to be osek. You have to constantly be osek on Kvot Shabbat, as we explained before. So that maybe you can do with other things. So therefore today, sharpening the knife could be, that doesn't apply so much. Interesting halacha that not so many people know. You know, everybody buys flowers. Many people buy flowers for Shabbat because it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to have flowers for Shabbat. But is there a source to buying flowers for Shabbat? says the Kaf HaChaim Falaji, Siman Lamedvav, that there's a inyan, it's a good idea, it's a good thing to buy flowers for Shabbat. Where do we find this? In the Midrash Rabbah. Midrash Rabbah says, Keshoshana ben hachochim ken ra'ati ben abanot. Just like a rose between the thorns, so is the comparison is to Am Yisrael. So says the Midrash Rabbah, Ma shoshana zu metukenet leshabbatot veyamim tovim, kach Yisrael metukanim legeula. Which means, what's the purpose of flowers? Says the Midrash Rabbah, flowers are for Shabbat. They're made for Shabbat and Yom Tov. So you see, there's a inyan to buy flowers for Shabbat, to honor the Shabbat. So that's a good idea, a good thing to remember from Rav Chaim Falaji. One that wants to use plastic utensils, disposables on Shabbat, is that good or bad? So it's brought down that on Shabbat you have to have, Shabbat is considered as you bring in the king to your house, the queen to your house. The Mishnah Berurah brings down, Siman Hashnun, that you should approach Shabbat as you would approach if a king would come to your house on a certain day. How would you prepare? What would you do? The same way you should do for Shabbat. So would you put disposable plates for a king that comes? You have the president comes to eat by you on one of the days. He wants to meet with you. You make a whole meal. Would you put over there disposable? You put plastic plates? Or you wouldn't? If you wouldn't on Shabbat, you shouldn't also. But could be today. One could be more lenient with that, says Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, because if you find that it's hard to do dishes afterwards, also sometimes it's a problem of Shlom Bayit, that each person doesn't want to do the dishes. He says the other one should do the dishes. So therefore, best thing in that case to buy some nice plates and nice utensils for Shabbat, not the simple plastics, but rather today they have with designs, things that are really nice. Sometimes even they put them in events, such things, because they really look nice. So if that's something that would be necessary for what we're saying right now, if a person doesn't feel that he wants to do dishes afterwards, he doesn't want to start doing dishes, that would be permitted, okay? Let me tell you a couple of things that it says in Siman Resh Nun in the Halacha. So we wrap this up. It says like this: when is it that you should go and buy things for Shabbat? You want to go to the supermarket, you want to go to the market, you want to go to the bakery. By the way, bakery, it says like this, in the beginning of Halchot Shabbat, Siman Resh Mem Bet, the Biur Halacha says that there's a mitzvah to bake chalot for Shabbat. It says, "Vaya bayom hashishi ve'viu et asher yaviu, et asher tofu efu." One should bake for Shabbat. He brings down, גם בזמן הגמרא היה מנהג קבוע לזה, כמו שהביא המגן אברהם. ובעוונותינו הרבים, today, היום התחילו איזה נשים להשבית המנהג ההוא ולוקחים מן האופה. Today, many women go to the baker to buy baking goods for Shabbat, ולאו שפיר עבדי, and that's not good. That's not a good thing to do. Why? They מקטינים בזה כבוד Shabbat, because they minimizing the honor of Shabbat. Instead of preparing for Shabbat, instead of doing something special for Shabbat, they're going to the baker and they're buying from the baker the challah and the baking goods. And he says that's not a good thing. But the Or Letzion brings down that this is all true. When did the Biur Halacha speak? When it's the same bread as you buy for the weekday. That's when you're not allowed. Which means you're buying the regular loaf of bread for Shabbat as well. That's not good. And for that you should prepare in your house. That's what they had in the bakeries. They didn't have chalot for Shabbat. They had regular loaves of bread. So the Or Letzion says, back then, the Biur Halacha, or Mishnah Berurah, back then he screamed that they should bake for themselves for Shabbat something special. But today, in the bakery, they have special chalot for Shabbat. You can go and buy those chalot for Shabbat. Better to buy on Friday than to buy on Thursday because it's more fresh, and it shows more that you're respecting Shabbat than when you're doing it on a Thursday. When you're doing it on a Thursday, it shows less the respect of Shabbat than on Erev Shabbat. And secondly, it doesn't stay as fresh. So therefore, one should buy it on Erev Shabbat. But he says, the Or Letzion, that it's fine to buy those chalot on Erev Shabbat. The Rav Elyashiv brings even more than that. It's brought down in the Dirshu, and he says that if you enjoy the challah from the bakery better than your challah, if you bake yourself a challah, and that's not as enjoyable as the challah from the bakery, he says it's more kavod Shabbat to buy from the bakery than to buy from yourself.